Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday to all of you. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend, and I hope that your week is amazing as well. You'll notice that I have a new camera angle. That's actually because I got a new monitor over the weekend. My parents had an old monitor that they weren't using anymore, and so if I just like tilt the camera a little bit, you'll see it. There it is. New monitor. Much nicer than my old one. All right, let's get this back adjusted. Yeah, so because it's a new monitor, if I were to put my webcam on top of this monitor, it actually doesn't fit. So that's the reason why I had to get a new monitor, or not a new monitor. I had to actually use my real camera stand to set up my webcam over on this side now. But I think that that's a good thing, because I noticed before that anytime the table shook a little bit, the camera also shook. And now because this is standing by itself, it's like, it's okay to be alone, it's okay to kind of do its own thing and live in its own world. So, you know, we're getting the best of both worlds now. Today is a writing day. I mean, you know, I do writing on here every day, of course. But today specifically, we take a look at our mechanics and our style. Now, I don't have a specific like grammar lesson that I want to go through today, but one of the things that I did want to talk about was just the importance of your grammar and your style when it does come to writing. So there's this like, okay, let's open up Paint. And then I'm going to give us some imagery. Gotta switch my screen over. Okay, so when it comes to your writing, I guess there are kind of like different worlds that your writing can exist in. Let's have two Venn diagrams. I'm just gonna copy and paste that over. Oh, it didn't want to copy over. I'll just make another circle. So in the writing world, if I were to simplify this like a lot, this is a huge simplification. There are good stories, and then there's good writing. And those are the two kind of like parts of the Venn diagram that we've got right here. So when it comes to like trying to become a writer or trying to improve your own writing, you have to think about where you currently are on this Venn diagram. Because some of you out there are in this good story zone. Like you have really good ideas, you have really strong characters, you have a really strong setting and plot line. But maybe some of the places that you start to fall short are in this good writing zone over here. Good writing, that would include things like, do you have strong sentence structures? Do you, I don't know, can you write a compelling paragraph that just propels the reader to continue reading your story? And the sweet zone that I think all of us try to aim for is definitely this, oh, why did that go black? I wanted that to be blue. Is definitely this zone right here. Like we want to exist in this middle zone where we can both have a good story and also have good writing. There are a lot of stories out there that currently exist that I believe exist only in one or the other. And it takes a lot of work actually to have this middle area where you have a good story and you also have good writing. Now, that's not to say that if all you have is a good story and not good writing, that's not to say that your story is bad, but it just means that that's the writing part is where you can improve. And of course, this applies to multiple things, so you don't have to just think about this in writing poetry or writing a novel, because those are the main forms of writing that most people think about. You could also think about this in terms of maybe like writing a screenplay, writing a play, you know, really anything you can apply this kind of writing rule to anything. So that's what we're going to work on today. We want to work on not just having a story, but actually having some strong mechanics behind that story. And one of the most powerful tools that you can start to use is good grammar, and also you can use fragments. So again, I want to write that down in some of our notes of what we're talking about today. So good writing, obviously you're going to have good grammar. Actually, I want to say good fitting grammar. Because what is considered good grammar is going to depend on who your character is and who is telling the story. Take, for example, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, written by Mark Twain. That story is, we would not consider that good grammar. We would not consider that grammatical. However, they talk in such a, the story's written in such a way that it emulates the way that people in the South speak, because that story takes place in the South. Similarly, there are other books, such as one of my favorite books, Push, and I can pull up a picture really quick, by, what's her name? Yep, by American author Sapphire. So this book right here, this book was written to be in the perspective of a young black girl named Precious, and she's illiterate. And so a lot of the first half of the book even is actually written in such a way that it seems like a first grader wrote the book. And that's an intentional choice on the writer's part, so that way the reader can get into Precious's mind. And I wonder if I can pull up an example, like if there's an excerpt that I can pull up. So let's just go to the Amazon book. Maybe we can do like a take a look inside kind of thing. So we will do look inside. So here is chapter 1 of the book. So I was left when I was 12 because I had a baby with my father. So notice father is spelled incorrectly compared to most of our English standards. However, it is resemblant of maybe what Precious would say out loud. It is spelled very phonetically to what she thinks it probably would be spelled as. That was in 1983. I was out of school for a year. This gonna be my second baby. This gonna be my second baby. Again, that is not that's not proper, quote, proper grammar according to our English standards. However, that is how a lot of people around the United States talk, so that is how Precious writes in this story. My daughter got Down syndrome, and by that she means Down syndrome. She's our word, which I don't want to say out loud. I had got left back in second grade too when I was 7 because I couldn't read and I still peed on myself. I should be in the 11th grade getting ready to go into 12th grade, but so I can go on and graduate, but I'm not. I'm in the 9th grade. So you'll notice right here, something that the author Sapphire is doing is she is emulating Precious's persona. She's emulating Precious's reading level and her writing level through how the story is being told. And this is a very powerful tool that especially writers who write in the first person narrative get to use in their writing. When you're writing in the third person, it's not quite as easy. Again, first person would be like me, I'm telling the story to you, and a third person would be like, I'm watching a movie and explaining what's happening in that movie. So this idea of grammar and style, mechanics and style, it's so important to actually telling your story and telling a compelling story. And one of the things that I think writers don't, especially emerging writers, some of you young writers out there, something that I think a lot of you don't realize that you can do is you can use fragment in sentences, especially when it comes to creative writing or just trying to create a very punctual statement. So let's take a look at my own writing as an example and where I can add some just short punctual sentences And here, I've actually got some examples right here. So right here, the narrator, Avery, is talking about some of the truths and the myths about like owning and running a resort, because they own and run a resort up in Wisconsin Dells, where there are a lot of resorts. And so Avery says, truth, you're always working, day and night. Myth, owning a resort is basically an extended vacation. Not really. You don't have unlimited access to the nicest rooms and cabins. Those are reserved for guests. So notice right here that even in this very first chunk, I have these very short punctuated sentences. You're always working. That is a grammatical sentence, so that can stand by itself. Day and night, not a grammatical sentence. That is not proper grammar. I cannot just walk up to someone and say day and night with no context. They would not understand what I'm talking about. However, in this context, it is tied with that previous sentence. And so in that sense, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of how our thought process works. So I want you to imagine that maybe right before someone says day and night here, someone like an imaginary interviewer asks. So maybe there's this like imaginary question right there, and Avery is predicting this imaginary question and just comes up with the answer, day and night. That's how long you were working. You're just working all the time. So these fragmented sentences, and you'll see I've got a couple others in here as well, like owning a resort is basically an extended vacation. Not really, period. So again, I'm using that power of the fragmented sentence to punctuate just that not really. And you see, the reason why I wanted to punctuate that not really is because that not really, that very short two-word sentence is actually the thing that is separating a myth. This is the myth from the truth. This is the truth right here. And I do that over and over again. Myth. If your resort is nice, obviously your house is nice too. Not really. Again, that separates it. Your living arrangement isn't nearly as nice as the resort rooms. So, in this case, I'm using this short fragmented sentence as a way of separating two different ideas. And that is something that you can start to do in your own writing. Now, clearly, you have to be very intentional about this kind of stuff, because if you just have fragmented sentences all over the place, it can get confusing for your reader. You have to be very intentional about when you choose to play around with your grammar and your mechanics, and when you choose to make a stylistic choice. Otherwise, it just becomes confusing. Okay, so for those of you who didn't tune into the stream last week on Friday, I was working on this story. This story is a prequel to a different, longer story that I'm working on. But basically where I left off is I have this part where Avery just bumped into this boy named Matthew, who is, you know, he's kind of like the love interest of the story, I guess, or he becomes the love interest in the main story. In this story, it's mostly just setting up their relationship and setting up their characters. And again, I'm doing this prequel story, this kind of prequel short story, so that way I can dig into my characters a little bit deeper and understand them a little bit more. This is an activity you can do in your own writing where you, like, if you get stuck with something or you're not quite sure how your characters would react, just write a short story about them in that situation. Like, that's completely okay. So, okay. I'm gonna actually put some space between there because this point on is where the story starts to change quite a bit because I'm making a lot of changes. Initially, the story was about a restaurant, and now I am changing that to more of a resort because I didn't want it to be about a restaurant, essentially. And yeah. So up until here, Avery was just talking with his older brother Brandon, who currently is, I guess, kind of like the main manager of the resort. And Avery just got off from work. He currently works at a summer music program, teaching children music. And so now he's home. So let's take a look at this. Where should we go from here? So Avery's at home. He just talked about the truths and the myths about living and working at a resort. So I think maybe I'll do some description about what their living situation is, because I'm seeing in this next section that it's Avery in the kitchen of his own home and, you know, just kind of hanging out, and he eventually texts his other brother. So let's do some description about the house. So So in this paragraph right here that I just took a couple seconds to write, or not a couple seconds, a couple minutes to write, I'm trying to establish some of Brandon's, like, he's not a very organized or very clean person. And of course, a lot of that comes from his, not necessarily him just being a naturally, like, unclean person, but more so that he struggles with this kind of idea of having to, I don't know, run this business, but not really having his heart set into this business. So that is like the difficulty that he's facing right now, and it's starting to spill out into other parts of his life. I also get to establish some other basic things, like, for example, it's a 3-bedroom flat, so I get to talk about that. I get to do a little bit of characterization with his deceased mom. She is no longer with them, but they still like talk about her, obviously. And so again, using that tool of my show don't tell, and in this case, this is quite a bit of tell, like it's just narration. I'm not like, you know, doing something very extravagant here, but at the same time, it's better than necessarily having a full paragraph of me just explaining what the apartment looks like or how the apartment is laid out, or like explaining who mom is. So again, giving my reader like little nuggets of information as they go throughout the story. Can't always do that, but when you can do it, you should. So now I can pretty transition pretty seamlessly into this. So in the kitchen, I find a spot at the table that hasn't been overrun by Brandon's mail yet. The guy seriously needs a secretary to keep track of everything. I think he was expecting either me or Stacy to stick around and help him with this kind of work, but we both dipped out for college. The only one still here is Jordan, and he should be more focused on finishing high school. Not running a resort. So there it is again. I've got my punctuated fragmented sentence right there. Taking my food out of my bag, the receipt tumbles to my feet. I pull it up just enough, and my eyes jump straight to the little message at the top. Your cashier today was Matthew Rhodes. Matthew Rhodes, again, being the boy that Avery met at the grocery store. It goes on a bit more, but I stop reading after his name and crumple the flimsy strip. Okay, so I remember when I wrote this, and I'm not like super excited about it, not to be completely honest. Mostly because this is, again, another huge section of tell, and it's literally just giving backstory, and it's not really propelling the current story forward at all. It's literally just giving history to the characters. So I kind of want to highlight this. We'll do it in the orange. I want to highlight this and maybe come back to it at some point to figure out, like, what is a way that I can do this in a less telly way. So I figured out a way to do this in less tell. I guess that's my challenge for myself. And I mean, it's some pretty important backstory here, because it explains, like, look, Matthew Rhodes, one of Ryan's old friends. They were pretty close, if I remember correctly. We had a bit of time overlapping in band class because Mr. Green put me in senior band as a sophomore. He was one of the sax players, but never really fit the stereotypes of a sax player, in my opinion. He was always quiet, but not unfriendly. Just that kind of guy who would be part of discussions and would laugh at things and participate in his own way. Not only was I the only sophomore in that band of juniors and seniors, but I was also a clarinet and flute player. We rarely overlapped, and I never had reason to talk to him, even when he would come over occasionally to play games with Ryan and some of the other guys in their friend group. So, like, there's some important information in there, but do I really need to dump all of that information in this one paragraph? I don't know. Because I'm looking at what happens next, and it looks like Avery and Ryan, Avery's older brother, kind of have this back and forth texting scene. So maybe I could try to work some of this into the texting scene, because I feel like some of this would pretty naturally come up in text conversation, especially if Avery just randomly texts his older brother and is like, hey, guess what? I ran into your old friend at the grocery store today. So, I don't know. I don't really know what to do with this. See, this is this is, again, one of the struggles of writing, is that you constantly have to predict how much information your reader needs, and you have to also predict, like, what does your reader want to know. And honestly, a lot of times your reader doesn't actually want to know as much as you want to tell them, because you might feel like it's super crucial information to tell your reader, But your reader might be like, what the heck? Why do I need to know about this orchid? I don't care about this orchid. Oh, 'tis the struggle, my friends. 'Tis the struggle. So I'm just gonna read, I just wanna like pick out like maybe even just one thing out of here. And if I can get this shorter, maybe I'll feel better about it. Okay. Maybe I'm having a hard time thinking about what I want to keep and what I want to take out. So maybe here's what I want to do. I'm going to go through a thought process of every single sentence that I put in here, every single little fact that I put in here, and why it's important to the story. So Matthew Rhodes, one of Ryan's old friends. This was already established before. They were pretty close if I remember correctly. Yeah, that's also pretty important for like the history. Especially in the real story, this comes back to be a pretty important fact later on. So I want to keep that as well. We had a bit of time overlapping in band because Mr. Green put me in senior band as a sophomore. This is also actually important because Mr. Green putting Avery in senior band as a sophomore is, I wanted to put that there to indicate that Avery is a pretty talented musician. And so that makes sense there. But I can cut down on some of this wordiness. So now we can work on some of our like style and some of our mechanics that we're using in here. We had a bit of time overlapping. I think we can just say we overlapped. We overlapped in band class because Mr. Green put me in senior band as a sophomore. He was one of the sax players but never really fit the stereotypes of a sax player. Now, all of this other stuff down here, I feel like has to be moved up here now. Because this is, again, talking about band stuff. Wait, this is also talking about band stuff. I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this at the end of this sentence. So now this reads, overlapped in band class because Mr. Green put me in senior band as a sophomore. Not only was I the only sophomore in that band of juniors and seniors, but I was also a clarinet and flute player. He was one of the sax players, but never really fit the stereotypes of a sax player, in my opinion. He was always quiet. Let's do some fragments right there. I feel like we have a lot of chunky sentences right now. Always quiet, but not unfriendly. And I also want to change this now. Always part of the discussions and would laugh at things and participate in his own way. Let's just say, and would participate in his own way. But not the center of attention. Now this just doesn't make sense because I used the word overlapped down here and I used it up here. So I really just have to take this out or change the wording. I'm just gonna separate that for right now. I might honestly just delete all of that entirely. But let's take a look at this paragraph now. So Matthew Rhodes, one of Ryan's old friends. They were pretty close if I remember correctly. We overlapped in band class because Mr. Green put me in senior band as a sophomore. Not only was I the only sophomore in that band of juniors and seniors, but I was also a clarinet and flute player. He was one of the sax players, but never really fit the stereotypes of a sax player in my opinion. Always quiet, but not unfriendly. Always part of discussions and would participate in his own way, but not the center of attention. Cool. And notice out there, I am using not only my fragmented sentences, but I am also using my parallel structures. Again, parallel structures, if you think about parallel lines, they're going down like this. So if you use a parallel structure, it means your sentences are looking kind of similar, kind of the same across. That is one of the tools that can help, that stylistically helps your reader to continue to engage. I'm just deleting this. I just don't really like it. Okay, so after all this editing, I actually kind of feel better about this. So I'm gonna unhighlight this. And I'm just gonna let that be for now. Actually, I'll keep it highlighted because it might be something that I want to come back to later. After I'm wrapping all my food, I pull out my phone and start a message to Ryan. Guess who I just ran into today? His response comes quickly as usual. Comes quickly. So one of the things as a writer is that typically we try to avoid adverbs. Now that's not a hard and fast rule. Obviously you can use adverbs when you need to, but always try to think about, is there a verb that you can use that is that captures both the adverb and the verb? So when something comes quickly, like something comes at you quickly, we could say it flies at you, it zooms at you, it whizzes past your head. I don't know. There are so many different verbs that you could use here. And so that's something that we have to think about when we are being a writer. And when I see this, his response comes quickly as usual. Well, now that just doesn't even make sense. His response bounces back as usual. Well, of course it's gonna bounce back. What else would he do with the response? So I'm going to say instead, before I even set my phone down. His response bounces back. So again, all of this captures that word quickly. And yes, it seems like more words that I put in there, but it's also more, what's the word? It shows more of what's happening. Lady Gaga? No, but that would be sick. Who then? Matthew Rose, that guy you were friends with in high school. Oh, dude. With a ton of U's, because remember, this is texting language, so you could definitely imagine that they're not going to have perfect grammar in all of this. He was a funny guy. You still talk to him at all? I'm trying to decide whether or not I can even ever show my face at Picassive again. He watches my streams sometimes. Haven't really talked to him. I don't know if that was intentional or not. I'm going to say that it was not, and that's just a typo. Haven't really talked to him much besides that. Haven't really kept up with anybody since moving TBH. Guess that means I should find a new grocery store then. No, you're fine. Just don't be weird. Be your usual able self and you'll be fine. I'm actually going to take this down into several paragraphs because one of these stylistic choices that I want to make for specifically Ryan when he texts is that he sends a lot of these fragmented texts versus full sentence texts. And Avery is actually the one who sends more more full sentence texts. Again, that's a stylistic choice, and I'm using style to actually act as a tool to explain to show who my characters are. And so if Ryan is you can imagine him sitting somewhere and texting, send, texting, send, texting, send. Ooh. Um, ooh, I'm getting a phone call, but I don't think I can take it right now. Hold on. I'm going to decline this phone call. And so that way I can text my friend and tell her that I am on stream right now and I can't talk. Okay. Sorry, just one of my friends calling me to check up on me. As, you know, as friends do, we check up on each other. Also, any of you who are watching this right now, either like right now or after the fact, this week is supposedly going to be really, really bad for coronavirus and COVID-19. So you should really do society a favor and like literally don't leave the house. Like they're even recommending that people limit like grocery shopping trips. I did all my grocery shopping for the week on Saturday in preparation for this week because some doctors were saying that it was gonna be pretty bad. So I am like set for a while, not for forever, obviously. I'll have to go grocery shopping again eventually, but I'll be set for a little bit. So if you have the ability to really consider not leaving the house. The death toll of COVID-19 is up to 9,000 and it's projected to kind of like reach its peak this week. So please do everyone a favor and stay indoors if you can. Cool. Anyways, going back to this. So be your usual Avo self and you'll be fine. What's my quote usual Avo self? IDK, kind of weird, kind of bubbly, mostly nice. Quiet guys like Matthew need nice friends like you. I'm bumping that down. I didn't say I was gonna befriend him, but you also texted me about him, so I hope your stream starts on fire. Literally just the Twitch website on fire. Love you too. Oh, I love when I write these kind of like fun interactions. Like it gives so much characterization. It gives so much life to like who these characters are. It's realistic because I mean, like, you know, we joke around like this with our friends and our siblings and stuff all the time. Okay, so one of the things that I am also realizing now. Oh, wait, no, you know what? Just kidding. Never mind. Never mind that fact. That'll be something that gets revealed later on. Feeling a bit flushed, put my phone down and stab a strawberry. I don't think I need to describe the eating process. That just seems like too much. Let's just put a period there. Stab a strawberry. Again, I'm using that word stab because I want to encompass these like feelings that are starting to develop within Avery. I shouldn't let Ryan get to me like this though. He did force me to at least give dating a chance in college, despite my arguments that I would rather just focus on my career. What am I trying to say? Okay, a boyfriend got me nowhere in high school. Doubt a boyfriend will get me anywhere in college either. That's not to say I never want a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. It's just not a priority, I guess. It's unfortunate Matthew Rhodes was a friend friends with Ryan. Ooh, look at all these grammar mistakes that I'm catching. I'd find him a bit attractive otherwise, not just physically though. Not just physically, period. Though I don't remember him being as fit in high school as he is now. Obviously, he's been keeping a steady workout routine right out of high school. Or obviously, he's been keeping to a steady workout routine, or the puberty gods have bestowed the infamous second puberty that I saw both Brandon and Ryan. Ooh, wait, I should say also Stacy. I want to put that in parentheses. Oh, no, you know what? I'll just put it in an M dash. Oh. Oh no, I know what I want to say to this. Wait, get it back. Cool. Okay, I kind of like this now. Obviously, he's been keeping to a steady workout routine, or the puberty gods have bestowed the infamous second puberty that I saw Brandon, Ryan, and Stacy all go through. I've yet to hit my second puberty glow up, if that's even a thing for Southeast Asians. Then again, I sometimes question if I've even hit my first puberty. But there's something about him on an emotional level too. Maybe the fact that he's probably a typical straight, emotionally unavailable man is what attracts me. Those are my favorite because they'll always break my heart without knowing it, and I apparently hate myself enough to continually fall again and again for the same type of guy. Oh, Avery. It hurts. So again, this is like a pretty... So these are two really chunky sentences, and as a writer, I like to use chunky sentences, especially when it comes to these kind of like sarcastic rambles, where it's like, oh, I'm just like the worst person in the world, and or no, not like that. I guess like a sarcastic ramble of like, I don't know. It's like this, like very self-deprecating. Maybe the fact that he's probably a typical straight, emotionally unavailable man is what attracts me. Those are my favorite because they'll always break my heart without knowing it. And I apparently hate myself enough to continually fall again and again for this same type of guy. Wow, okay, so a little bit of work in that paragraph has actually, like, we get so much more of who Avery is now, and I'm pretty satisfied with how this has developed and how this has changed into the better. For anyone who's watching, I will probably be ending stream a little bit early just because at 10 o'clock I have an English 10 stream where we are going to be doing some virtual tours today, actually. I found this really cool. Like, the Holocaust Museum has a virtual tour where you can, like, literally walk through and see the exhibits. And again, we're in our unit of the Holocaust. Can I, like, really click on this to zoom up on it? Oh, I can't exactly read it. Yeah. So I think I'm going to be doing a virtual tour with my English 10 folk. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh, there's a list of installations. That's kind of cool. I appreciate that. Anyways, I'm gonna stop getting off track now. So, back to the writing. I just love life. So, this is like a very short sentence and I put it in its own paragraph. That's also something you can do as a creative writer, is you can throw things off by themselves and just have them be their own thing. And what it forces the reader to do is it forces the reader to actually like read that by itself. And that can be very powerful, especially if you have these, you know, little sarcastic phrases that you want to be thrown in there, or very punctual phrases. Like sometimes I've had very emotional things thrown into their own paragraphs. And it really does add to the depth and the level of depth for your stories. Oh gosh. Oh wow. This transition is so fast. My time at work passes quickly most days. Working with kids and teaching them instruments is exhausting but also fun and entertaining at the same time. They like to ask me about college, which to them in middle school, I'm sure probably feels like a million years away. I remember when I used to think college was just a distant thought, and here I am having wrapped up my freshman year of college at UW-Madison. Crazy. Whoa, that's a lot to tell. We gotta highlight that. Oof. In addition to that, we need a better time lapse. We need a better time lapse for right here because it is, I don't know, this is so abrupt. Like here we are sitting in the kitchen talking about men, and then suddenly we jumped to, well, a couple weeks have gone by or not. I don't know what to do with this. You know, I'm gonna be completely honest. As a writer, I have never perfected the art of a good time lapse. Like, never. Now, part of that is because I write in the first person present tense, and so there is definitely a struggle, or there's definitely a challenge there when it comes to the passage of time. Now, obviously, writing in the first person present tense is helpful because it means that I get to tell my stories almost like a movie that's happening, and you get to see so much from the narrator's perspective. However, one of the struggles of it is that, again, I can't really show the passage of time because then you have chunks like this where it's a character reflecting on time and it's not a character experiencing time. So, I don't know, this is some homework for me where I have to figure out how do I better get across this passage of time. Okay, it's 9:50. I have an English 10 stream coming up kind of soonish, so I am going to call it for right now. And tomorrow we will continue writing. Although I might do just like an impromptu stream later today, just to like continue doing some writing stuff. And also I imagine more people can make it to an afternoon writing versus a morning writing, so we'll see how that goes. So thank you folks for tuning in either live or after the fact, but I hope you learned a little bit of writing, and I hope you got to see a little bit of the writing process, and that yes, this is a really long and difficult process. Have a wonderful day if I don't see you until tomorrow, and yeah, stay safe, wash your hands, don't touch your face. Bye y'all.